Welcome to the 60 Plus Podcast.
I'm Janet.
And I'm Joe. How are you, Janet?
Fabulous.
Fabulous.
Yes.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. How are you?
Fabulous.
Okay, you didn't want to mess that up, huh?
No.
All right. So,
What are we talking about today, Janet?
well, we're going to try something a little bit different. It's not really a nostalgia episode because we just had one of those, but it's something where we're talking about that was then and this is now, and that was then is back again.
Some things are back again, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're looking at what we do today versus what we did in the past, and then how some things are becoming retro and cool again.
Such as?
Well, certainly there's some clothing that we could talk about, and there's like music that is back again. And it's almost like 60 plus people are actually a lot cooler than we give ourselves credit because all these young kids are trying to be like us when we were.
I don't think they realize that that's what they're doing.
No, they don't realize it per se, but we know it.
We know it.
Yeah. And that's the more important point.
It is because we're cool.
Because we're cool.
We're cool. All right. Do you want to give us an example?
Cool for school.
Do you want to start?
I was thinking about school actually. Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah, because I was thinking about how, you'd sit in the classroom and the teacher would come in and they'd be like, open up your books to page whatever, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about the classroom now and it's like, close your laptops. No cell phones.
Yeah.
It's like, it's weird. Like the media is being taken away. I don't know. It's strange.
Are the textbooks on the laptops or do they use textbooks anymore?
Maybe this is like, university level too, right? Everything is through a learning platform.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways you do need to have your computer and that's what kids bring to school. But a lot of times they're doing something that they're not supposed to be doing.
I was very particular about the spiral bound notebooks that I would use.
I bet you were.
Weren't you?
Please tell us. No, I'm not picky about things like that.
Oh no, they had to be just the right
as long
ones.
as I could doodle on them, I didn't care.
I had a teacher in high school who wanted to instill in us good note-taking ability. And he would periodically collect people's notebooks and review their notes just to see how they were doing.
Yeah.
He was a history teacher. He was a great teacher, actually. And I would, if I was bored in class, I would write song lyrics in the margin of the notebook. As I was taking notes, I'd be listening, but I'd write the song lyrics. And I remember getting my notebook back from him after he had checked it, and he had corrected the song lyrics. And they were like,
really
popular. He was older, but
see, he was cool and you didn't know it.
He listened to the same music. And
just like today.
I remember it was a Jethro Tull song, and he corrected the lyrics to a Jethro Tull song.
And you were like, wow, he's cool. Yeah, I know. Isn't that funny? Well, some things don't change, right? But I think that, it's sort of interesting to see what does kind of come back into the culture. We were talking about photography before.
We were?
Yeah, we were. Remember we talked about how you used to, take a snap a shot.
Oh,
You'd
right.
have to go get the film developed. Yada, yada, yada. Now you're like, it's your phone.
Yep.
Basically. And they've perfected the technology so much. I mean, the photographs are really, I was taking a picture last night and it was adjusting for the lack of light and it's just amazing. Like the aperture and everything's like automatic. It's crazy.
But one of my daughters has several film cameras and she takes film pictures all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what she posts to Instagram.
Yeah. And that's the real artiste, if you will. A real photographer still wants to use film. But the other thing, and that was then is back again. When you go to events, we had an event recently and the kids were doing the old Polaroid snapshot.
Remember how magical that was?
Remember when that got that? Yeah.
Polaroid was headquartered in Massachusetts. And I remember we would drive by and we go, that's where they invented the Polaroid camera.
Yeah. So that's back.
It is.
Back again. Interesting stuff. I mean, you have the automatic photograph clearly when it's on your phone, but there's something about that sort of tactile, watching it develop in front of your eyes, and it's kind of cool, So I think that that's different.
Well, talking about cameras too, was your family like a movie?
Projector. Yeah.
Did your family take
We,
home movies?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I had an uncle who was an avid home movie person, but he had these lights. Oh my gosh, it was like brighter than the sun. And every home movie, I remember seeing home movies of my cousins and me, and everyone's squinting because the lights were so bright.
Lights, camera,
Yes.
action. Yeah. Well, and that's another thing that's back again, you know? It's like, okay, so we moved away from the home movies and, you know, went to like whatever, so much content available, movies. You don't have to go to the theater. You know, drive-ins kind of disappeared, but then they came back again in some degree. I think, especially during the pandemic, I can remember watching people in like the back of the buildings. They synced their movie and they had the big screens, the outdoor projectors. And so it kind of became in vogue again. And I think it's still like you see like towns will do movie nights and stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of fun.
It is fun. I actually have movie nights in my backyard.
Yeah. When's the next one, Joe?
I haven't decided yet.
Okay. Well,
it's one of
I'm
those
waiting
things
for my invitation.
you can't plan too far ahead,
right?
Because of weather.
Yes.
And
you have to have a rain date.
Well, maybe, but this time of year is challenging too because it stays light out so late.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So there's a lot to consider, Janet. I mean,
yes. Plus, then you popcorn.
Oh yeah.
You have to consider that.
Well, I have a popcorn machine that I put out on movie night.
See, like that's candy. You have to have candy. You have to make sure that you get the right candy. That's something
true.
to consider.
That's true. Now, a little later, there was when you would have movies at home and you'd watch them on your TV, you'd go to Blockbuster or a place like that.
Right.
Now, you know, that was probably after college that became a thing for me. And then it became streaming.
Well, the Netflix came where you could send away for.
They would send you 2 movies and you could keep it for a week
however
or
long,
whatever.
But you wouldn't get another one until you sent
That's true. That's true. I remember going to Blockbuster and it was a big deal. Like, what movie are we going to watch? And you'd spend an hour at Blockbuster.
Well, now you still go through what movie you're going to watch, except you're going go through all the streaming. Like, what do they have? What do they have? Do you have this? Do you have Hulu? Do you have? It takes hours to find a movie, which is kind of annoying. But
I still like going to the movies. So I went to the movies earlier this week.
See, that didn't change. You know?
Oh no, it changed a lot.
Well, I mean, the movie experience changed to some degree, but the idea of wanting to go to the movies, you know, that is back again, right? Like, I just went to an IMAX movie. That was fun.
It is fun.
I hadn't been to one of those in years.
When I go to the movies now, it's reclining seats and big armrests.
And you can get alcohol and all that other bad.
I would never do that.
No,
never.
Never. No.
All right.
What else has changed or not changed, really? We were talking about household items.
We were.
Yeah. Stop saying that. So the blenders and the mixers, all in those different colors, like that's another thing that's come back. Like, remember all those horrendous colors, like
harvest gold,
avocado, and green, avocado green,
turquoise.
And, all these colors, which were sticky back then. I thought, well, they're back. It's like, no, you can get all these household appliances, even like the really fancy
stoves.
And
refrigerators.
Yeah.
And these very, I don't want to say garish colors.
No,
but they're
definitely retro, right?
Yeah.
You know, so again, it's like the styles that I mean, you could talk about jeans, dungarees, bell bottoms, you know, things but that like bounces back and forth, you know, in terms of styles, you know, trench coats.
Sure.
Or always in, I suppose. Anyway.
Where'd you go there, Janet?
I left for a second. I was thinking about trench coats.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, what else was different and then is back again. Joe, you got anything?
Even though we weren't little, well, no, video games like Pong
Mm.
and those early video games,
Yeah.
and then they got very complicated,
Yeah.
and they're still very complicated. I can't play them anymore. But
So-
some of those retro games
Are coming
are
back.
coming back.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you know what else in terms of play? It's like we all grew up playing outside, right? It's like get outside,
Well, there was nothing else to do. What
we
were you
didn't
going to?
have video games,
Right.
number one,
No.
right? I'd have to go 3 miles down the street to go to any kind of like Pong or anything like that when that came up
Hmm.
for us. But,
With a pocket full of quarters.
right.
Yeah.
So that really, the whole idea of play really shifted, with technology, especially. And then now it's kind of shifting back again, right?
Free range parents.
Yeah.
And sending the kids outside. Go play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's actually really healthy to do that. And we know this because we covered this, how healthy being outside is.
Hmm.
But I think too for creativity. And
Sure.
we used to come up with some really complicated things, and you'd have to all afternoon, like piecing this whole thing out,
Hmm.
like what you were going to do for that
Where
day.
you were playing judge and
Yeah.
yeah.
much
Giving your
more
patty
than,
wax
much
out
more
as-
than
yeah.
just that.
Yeah.
Human nature, right? We may be going down this really incredible technology path, like with AI and whatnot. But then I think the pendulum swings back on some things. And, that human connection is really critical. Was this like big push by Meta where he's going to promote AI companionship? You're going to fall in love with some AI virtual thing? I mean, I understand that there's like a loneliness epidemic or whatever.
Is it like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where it's like, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that.
That could eventually, I guess, happen. That is really hard to get your head around.
So the ways we communicate,
Mm-hmm.
not even with email and texts. Speaking of old cell phones, when texting first started,
Yeah.
and it didn't have like an alphabetic keyboard, it just had the numbers. Do you remember
Oh,
this?
yeah, yeah.
And you would type, and it would kind of try and figure out what you were the
Well,
word.
which it still does figure out, but you don't have to. Yeah, you'd have to like go to the number and hit. It would have like 3 other letters or something, and you'd
Yeah.
have to hit. Yeah. Wow. That's
S-
pretty cumbersome, huh?
I just thought it was so. I thought it was easy. Well, I've got a phone. Why aren't I just calling
Well-
the person?
Well, I think that's still true today. Again, it's so much more efficient and less cause for error in communication. This episode's about what hasn't changed. What hasn't changed?
What
Joe?
hasn't changed?
Yeah, even given all this technology, what hasn't changed?
In some respects, cars haven't changed. They still mostly have 4 wheels and a steering wheel and a gas pedal and a brake.
Right, except now they're running on electricity.
Some of them are running on electricity. There's a lot more gadgets in your car.
Yeah, for
A
sure.
lot more. They're much more comfortable.
Yeah,
Uh,
true.
I mean, it used to be. I remember my first car. The seat wouldn't move enough. I had to have a pillow.
You know
because
what else has changed is cars all used to be manual.
Everything.
Now barely anything is manual
Mhm.
anymore, which is a bummer. Wish they'd bring that back.
Well, you can. There are cars you can get that are manual.
10% of all cars are manual.
Hmm.
And now with electric vehicles, those are all automatic.
Well, there's no gearing in
Yeah,
those. There's
exactly.
just one gear.
So there we go, Talk about people wanting a retro something. Those retro cars are going to go up in value. That's my prediction.
I was driving down the highway the other day, and someone drove by me in a Jeep,
Yeah.
and you could tell that they were cranking the windows.
Yeah.
They weren't electric. They were cranking the windows.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time that I saw window cranks.
I know. Isn't that funny? Well, I like going to old car shows, and of course you see them there.
Hmm.
But man, those cars are so beautiful, the old ones.
They really,
They
well,
just don't make them like that anymore.
no, they don't. No, they
They
don't.
really don't.
I really like some of the gadgets in my car.
Well, I don't like some of them.
Such as,
Well, the automatic braking, I guess, is good when you really need it. if it works. But when it works and you're trying to pull out and you can see the car coming, but it like slams on the brakes anyway. And you're like, I know there's a car there and I'm just inching out, and it like slams on the brakes and you're like, I'm not even close to it. Feet.
Maybe you shouldn't be inching out. I'm just saying.
No, because you
just
have to
saying.
inch out to be able to see. And then
Okay.
all of a sudden you're like trying to look and you're like, boom.
Okay.
Like, oh my God, whiplash. So
Okay.
I don't like that feature. But I do like it when when there's a real problem and it automatically brakes for you. That's good. So I wish there was like a sensor where you could be like, okay, I don't need you now. Oh, I might need you some other time, but not now.
Well, pretty soon, I'm sure the car will know when you want it and when you don't.
Yeah, you could probably just voice command.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In school,
Mm-hmm.
we
Back
talked
to-
about
Back to school.
back to school. Do you remember using a slide rule?
I think you are older than me.
No, we had to learn how to do it.
I don't remember using a slide.
Really?
No.
I don't think I could do it now, but
Oh, you didn't use an abacus?
we had an abacus. It was kind of like a history thing. Like, this is how,
Yeah.
ancient people used to.
Do you think you could use an abacus now? If you had to?
I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not. But the reason I bring up the slide rule is I remember the first time I saw an electronic calculator.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing.
I still have my first one.
All this thing did.
Texas Instruments.
The first one I saw was a Bomar.
I don't know that one.
And all it did was add, subtract, multiply, and divide. It was a kid that I went to high school with. And I think it cost $200 back in the 70s. And all it did was add, subtract, multiply, and divide.
Okay, so what is retro about that, Joe? Or is this a nostalgia episode or what?
Well, the progression from slide rules to electronic calculators to now it's on your phone. Everything's on your phone.
Yeah.
I guess we're not going back to anything.
We're not going back to an abacus. Well, if we lost electricity, we'd have to go back to a lot of things.
That's true. Such as
transistor radio.
Manual can openers.
Yeah, manual can openers. What wouldn't change is like matches. Still need matches.
Okay.
Right? Think of whistles. Whistles are still a handy thing to have. Well, I think about what I have in my hiking bag. You have one of those multi-tools.
Mm-hmm.
These are the handy things to have that haven't really changed much.
Okay.
Right? Matches, as I said.
Matches, whistles.
Whistles. Bells.
Do you use bells a lot?
Yeah, for bears. You're supposed to put bells on your backpack so that it scares off the bears.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen any bears while you were hiking?
No, because I have bells on my backpack. And my toes.
Okay.
Yeah, so think about it from that perspective, Joe. What would be so retro, right? It wouldn't be just retro. It'd be more like, hey, what's still really useful that hasn't changed?
Bells and whistles.
Bells and whistles.
Bells and whistles.
And matches and cards. Cards are good.
Janet's ready for the apocalypse.
Cards have never gone out of style. That's
Like
always handy.
Playing cards?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about entertainment.
You're just listing things
That
now.
hasn't changed. No, I'm listening. Well, because this was supposed to be the show episode was about like what's back again or
Okay.
what never left.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about these categories that we're talking about, cards would definitely be under entertainment and media. Board games, they have these locations now. They're like attached to craft breweries.
Board game cafes.
Yeah.
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 My kids go all the time.
Yeah. So that's back again.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Record albums are
I
back
have.
again.
I listen to vinyl albums all the time.
They never left.
They almost went away, and they're
Yeah.
really coming back strong.
Yeah.
There's something about the ritual of putting
But-
the record on
And
the
I think it's the
turntable.
sound too. It's the lack of perfection of the sound, maybe.
It
but
sure
it's-
is.
So that is kind of cool.
All right.
Books, never really
Well, you don't have a
left.
Kindle? You don't have a Kindle?
I do, but I don't use it. I still like to read a book,
Mm.
A lot of people do audiobooks or whatever, but books are still very popular.
Sure.
Very popular.
All right. Are we just stretching for time now, Janet?
I don't know what we're doing.
No,
This has
we're
been a
done.
very sloppy episode, I have to say. I don't know if this is going to be a new series. I don't think it's going to make it as a new series, but that's okay because we tried to do something a little bit different. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it makes you go,
Sometimes I feel like a nut.
All right.
Sometimes I don't.
If you have any things that we didn't talk about that you think were that was then, this is now, and it's coming back,
now
leave it as a comment in the
Spotify. Then is back again.
Yeah.
That's how it goes, Joe.
Oh.
That was then, this is now, and that was then is back again.
Okay.
It's like
if you have anything like that, leave it as a comment in the Spotify comment section.
Yeah, so we'll make sure we mention it.
Like, subscribe, share, do all that. We want to get out to more people. And Janet likes to mention that we don't put any ads in the 60 Plus podcast. So.
I do like to mention that.
So,
because it's free and we love to share it with as many people as possible.
Yes.
So we appreciate you.
That was then.
This is now.
This is now.
And that was then is back again.
And that's the end of this episode of the 60 Plus podcast.
I'm Janet.
I'm Joe.
Bye.